Alright guys, thank you for checking in with Stormtopia.com and the Stormtopia.com Facebook page. We're going to have an update on the massive Midwestern, the huge storm that tore through the central part of our nation and even affected us further east. Let's take a look at some totals right now in terms of snow of what we've already seen. Some areas picked up in excess of 4 to 8 inches in the areas that saw heavier snow with blizzard conditions, and we still have a blizzard warning up. And those areas that saw the heaviest snow were mostly over north-central North Dakota and this northwestern Minnesota. Widespread 1 to 3 inches, and some spots less, in the areas from North Dakota into northern South Dakota, all the way down towards even the Duluth area and into places like the Twin Cities, which barely saw anything. We also saw very strong winds in excess of 60 and 70 miles per hour from this storm, and here's why they were so strong. What's essentially happened here is we got this huge, unbelievably low pressure center, about 960 millibars, centered over southern Ontario into Minnesota. At the same time, we've also got a high center out in the west, and between those two, we had just the strongest wind event in a long time for essentially this entire area. We also saw severe weather back into here, which is continuing today. We're going to get to that in a second, when that caused some of the strongest winds with a huge squall line just ripping through this area. Now we're going to get to right now the current radar imagery, and what you notice here is essentially what we've just been talking about. We've got rain that is moving up through the east coast. We've got a couple areas of heavier rain. We've also got a severe threat from the mid-south back into areas of North Carolina and Virginia. We actually have a slight risk posted by the Storm Prediction Center for those areas from the mid-south back into the southern mid-Atlantic, and a 30% wind risk from North Carolina and Virginia. Hail is pretty low, but the tornado risk is actually pretty significant. 10% risk over southeast Virginia. Places like Richmond, places like Virginia Beach, places like Norfolk are areas that could have severe weather and an isolated tornado later today, along with some snow showers as the blizzard starts to wind down across the north-central United States. We're going to take a look right now of what happened through time when we take a look at the NAM model. Let's take a look here. By the time we make our way out to Thursday, what's essentially happening is we've got a number of things going on. Let me just go back there. One of the major things that you see is behind the storm that is now pushed all the way up towards Hudson Bay. We've got cooler air coming into the north-central United States, coming into the upper Midwest. Now look what happens here as we go through time. That cold air just does not stick around. By the time you get out to Thursday night to Friday, it's very clear when you look at the 500 millibar pattern. Big ridge, big warmth, centered in Mexico and Texas. And by the way, Texas is just going to be, you're going to be sweating like a pig in Texas. I mean, it's really going to be unbearable out there. And it's going to get, that warmth will just spread back up into the areas of the Midwest. And that snow is going to melt in an instant, honestly. Friday, not bad. We're looking at much warmer air for most of the upper Midwest. At the same time, it's a little different in the east. We've got cooler air for the Great Lakes that's kind of sticking around. We'll have to see about that. But you see, oh wow, a pretty significant chunk of cold air starting to dig into the eastern U.S. Well, look what happens here at the 500 millibar. I know I keep diverting to the 500 millibar pattern, but it's important that I do so to explain the weather. By later Thursday night, what we're seeing here is this trough, and not associated with a shortwave this time, but a trough moves for the eastern U.S. with the leftover cold from that major Midwester. We say nor'easter, but this was a Midwester. Now that's centered over Canada. So this is enough to bring a combined flow of cold air from Quebec and Ontario, mostly Ontario, into New England. So you see by later on Friday, that cold air has certainly placed itself over New England. We're going to get to the snow showers in just a bit. At the same time, there was also a little bit of a storm that's trying to make its way into Northern California. Similar to the storm that we saw about a week ago, last Saturday. This is actually going to be happening next Saturday, so it's exactly turning on a dime with a week. However, not going to be severe, probably no more than 1 to 2 inches of rain. And it's not going to be an overly impressive trough that digs in along with the shortwave. In terms of wind speeds, they won't gust to more than 30 or 40. However, once it gets over the desert southwest, we could have some Santa Ana winds kicking up in the Mojave Desert, which is one thing that we will watch. But essentially into the weekend, the general pattern will be continuous warming for the west, central, and southeast United States, along with the Midwest, with cooler air and possibly some snow showers into Saturday with that leftover precip from the Midwester coming into New England. Okay, guys, that concludes this forecast video. I've taken you through the rest of the week and into the weekend. Hope you enjoyed it. Please spread the word about Stormtopia.com and have a great day.